welcome back. My name's Ryan Selvy. I'm your host here for File New, the design show, the art show, the creator show, where we get you all the up-to-date news to keep you in the know of all the changing landscape of what it means to be a creative in 2025. Thanks for hanging tight. Thanks for being here. Hello to Penny and Arif, Barbara and Wade, Bree, Penny over on YouTube, as well as Nate, Oliver, Apurva, Umacorn all over on Behance, and Frank as well. We've got a lot planned for you today, and we've got a lot of really exciting news to get into. So let's go ahead and hop into our first segment, which is just, the news. For all of our stories, we always like to have a nice collection of the links for you available in the Raindrop, which is raindrop.io. It has a link to all of the links that are mentioned in the show for this episode and in previous episodes. Basically, you go to it and you pick up on the date or the episode number. And now I'm doing dates because we're getting so high in the numbers system that it's just easier to do the dates. So make sure you're looking up June 25th. If you're watching a replay of this, I promise to make this worth your while. We've got plenty of things that are still up to the date, even if you're watching it a few days late. A lot of cool stuff to get into. Also, thank you for everyone putting hellos in the chat. It's really good to see you guys here. And it really helps with engagement and showing the different stuff. Bree is already saying that she loves Project Indigo, which is the first thing that we're going to be talking about today, and it's a new camera app from Adobe Labs. It is an experimental app, and it transforms your phone into a DSLR through the use of AI. Now, you're wondering, how does AI take place in my camera? You're thinking, is it going to generate pictures for me? No, that's not what we're talking about here. The cool thing about Project Indigo that is still very much in beta is that it's going to be transforming the things that are happening on your phone to make them react and behave closer to what a DSLR is. So when you have a DSLR, you obviously have bigger lenses, bigger bodies, and there's a lot of information that you're actually getting from that physical space that you have with the depth of the lens. There's only so much you can do because you've got a amount of space that you can mess with things with aperture and depth that just with lenses that are this thick are not going to get you the same thing. So it's leveraging AI to let you have kind of a faux control over the idea of what you're taking pictures of. So it has depth simulation, which is what I was just talking about. It can create a AI analysis of the scene and create a depth map, which helps the camera and what is closer and what is farther, so that you can work on adjusting the focus and the background blur and being able to adjust it after you even take the shot. So if you want to later kind of adjust what is close and what is near, it can figure that out. It has aperture effects, which helps you also mess with the blurring and change the aperture by selectively blurring parts of the image. And it also has some really good portrait and subject isolation. It uses machine learning to recognize people or objects and keeps them sharp while softening the background, mimicking the bokeh effect you'd get with like a fast lens. It's available on the App Store. If you go look under Adobe Labs, it's just called Project Indigo. Would love to hear what you guys think about it and how your pictures differ using this app rather than using something like the built-in native camera app or whatever you're normally using. Oliver is saying that he has both for, I guess, DSLR and his camera. And Penny says, of course, Oliver has everything. I plan to play with this Project Indigo, and I will let you guys know what I get when I start taking pictures. In other Adobe Update news, there was a cool feature on offset staggering for After Effects. You said, Ryan, what do you mean offset staggering? Look here on this screenshot that they have with these different layers. There's all different layers that are playing at different times. And previously, you had to either get a third-party plugin or you had to manually go through and stagger them. Now there is a feature update that allows you to natively adjust the staggering just by clicking and dragging. If you look to the Raindrop link that then links out to a write-up from the Adobe team, you can see that it's on the Adobe community, and it shows you that layer offsetting can be used both forward, backwards. It can be in succession. It can be staggered. If you want to do the keyframes as well. That's also available. If you highlight keyframes of multiple different layers, you can still continue to click and drag and get a equal amount of space in between keyframes or groups of keyframes, which is very helpful, especially when you're working with a lot of layers and things over a long duration of time that you want to have more control over a continuous update of keyframes and layers that are doing things. This is all accessible through just using some keyboard shortcuts. You hold down Command Option on Mac or Control Alt on computer while you drag your selection, and that'll get you the quick offset. This is coming from Brian C. Carter, an Adobe employee, and it was posted to the Adobe community, which you can always access at community.adobe.com. Back to the previous story, we have some comments over on Behance from Keys saying, I've been watching Project Indigo like a hawk, in that I've mostly seen Forest, Canopy, and Prey. Knew nothing of it until now. So interested to see how you end up playing with it if you bring it out into the wilderness and what it's going to be looking out. Keeping things Adobe focused, because I always like to put the Adobe news at the top of the show. There was a update that is going out to the beta for Illustrator, and the team wants to know what you guys think about snapping on Adobe Illustrator. This is coming from Luke Choice over on the r/Adobe Illustrator subreddit. It says, the Illustrator team wants to hear your thoughts on snapping. He wanted to open a discussion with the community to get your thoughts on your interaction with snapping in Illustrator. They've been addressing a number of quality of life features and is keen to get thoughts on the identified pain points and needs that people have with snapping in particular. The current snapping improvements are available for testing in the Illustrator beta, but the team would like to make sure they aren't missing any valuable feedback before pushing forward into the final stages of the development. This is going back to smarter, faster, trusted tools. They're talking about improving snapping with the UI, with grid enhancements, with rotated objects, snap to last location. Alignment guides now show up correctly at different zoom levels. Distant guides and spacing guide UI improvements. Parallel and angular guides are now a part of alignment guides. And this is the way of the team really trying to meet the community where they are, trying to say, we're listening and we want to hear what your feedback is and what your experiences is so that we can then go and bring that back to the product team so that they know what to update. You can either put these feedback in the subreddit here, which will be linked to in the raindrop, or if you put it in different Discord discussion groups, we will try to then elevate it and bring it to the right teams. But this is all about Adobe saying we're listening and we want to see what is important to the community and what is needed to be improved on. Nate is saying snap, snap. And people in YouTube are all snapping their fingers because they're too busy to touch the keyboard. That sounded so sassy. I was just trying to bring everybody together. I'm so sorry. Staying on the smarter, faster, trusted tools, we have the updates to Photoshop and Lightroom. This was posted in the official Photoshop Discord. This is coming from Erin. She's saying that there are some recent improvements that they've made to Photoshop and Lightroom that might be a little less noticeable, but they want everybody to know. Crashes and stability have been decreased by 40%, 40 in the latest updates. Still not perfect, but much more than a stable release than a few weeks ago. Generative fill quality issues came up a lot, apparently, where the remove tool and general quality were concerning, but in June they shipped a completely new model that significantly improved the removal tasks, and also there's a model picker in beta that lets you choose which model works best for your specific use case. For selection tools, the improved cloud-based models for select subject and remove background allow much cleaner edges and better accuracy. The object selection tool also got an upgrade to better handle people, hair, clothing, and accessories with way more precision. And finally, there is export and file format support. We talked about this last week. They added support for AVIF and JPEG XL formats. We have a lot of format news today, by the way. This is the Adobe-focused one, but there's actually two other stories that we have that are going to be format-focused, so I guess this is just file new format. These may not seem exciting now, but they're likely going to replace JPEG in the coming years, so they're getting ahead of the curve. And then as far as Lightroom Classic and Desktop, there are now non-destructive enhance and denoise improvements with denoise, raw details, super resolution. They're now part of the edit stack. No more extra DNGs, and distraction removal is now there, so you can automatically remove distracting reflections and people from your shots. Hopefully this speeds up your workflow, gets you into that faster area, and you can create things more on the fly, and that way you don't have to worry about the tools getting in your way. You can just get to your final vision. All right, moving on to Twitch. Did you guys know that there's this report coming out from James Hale on TubeFiller? It says Twitch makes more of its revenue directly from viewers' pockets, not from the ads. Previously, Twitch and YouTube were up against each other. There was this idea of both being kind of the streaming giant. In recent developments, this article is suggesting that YouTube is now mostly focused on Reels and made videos. I know you're watching this as a live stream on YouTube, so do me a favor and still give it a thumbs up. Give it a thumbs up if you like the show. Give it a comment if you're watching the replay. It helps with the reach. But basically, Twitch is now coming out and saying they are not in the business of making most of their money through ads. They're mostly making their money now through creator and viewer donations, subscriptions, and that viewer economy that they have created. They've created emotes that you can get when you become a subscriber. There are different donations that you can then add to subscriber base. There's bits. And this interaction is really what is propelling and lifting up the Twitch economy. The Twitch economy obviously is under the umbrella that is Amazon, since Amazon owns Twitch, and then Google owns YouTube. But it's interesting to see these two kind of splinter off, because for the longest time it has just been ads, ads, ads. And it's interesting to see that they have managed to create this back and forth between creators and with a fee on top of it that then goes to Twitch, whereas YouTube, it's all about the ads. Which will be interesting to see how that changes and switches the interactions of creators and their viewers, or if you don't notice a change from the viewer side. But it is something that it's important to know how these companies are making money and how they are interacting with users. I told you we were going to have some format updates. Who wants to hear about PNGs? Go off in the chat if you want to hear about PNGs. I want to hear you guys go crazy as if we are, at Coachella for PNGs. This is an update that I found out through The Verge. It's from Jess Weatherbed. It says, we finally have an update for PNG. Launching 22 years after its last major update, the latest PNG spec now include native support for HDR, APNG animations, and EXIF metadata for embedding information into image files. You might say, okay, what does that even mean? But you can see that Adobe Photoshop already has support for it. The cool thing about APNG is if you go into the link that is linked at the Verge article, you can see, thank you for the craziness I see in the chat. Thank you, Penny and Malteam, for doing, oh yeah, PNG. We have an update from Program Max that gives you a better idea of what these crazy acronyms mean. Talking about PNG having HDR support is going to expand the wide level of colors that you have access to when you're saving out as a PNG. Already, I use PNG as something that I export just because the colors are better. Thank you, Winter. Yeah, we're getting some real hype in the chat. We have some exciting more colors and greens and blues, a little bit of yellows and reds. You'll also notice with whites and brights, you can see that they are increased so that they can meet those HDR specifications. The APNG is cool because it was proposed by Mozilla quite some time ago. Support was added to Firefox, but other programs hesitated to adopt them. Now, animated PNGs are widely supported, so you can start using them as a means to use them for animated images. This is something that you'll notice when you export in a GIF, and it will normally seriously compress your colors or your motion or your image to make things feel way too chunky and blocky. With the accessibility of APNGs, hopefully you'd be able to go and get something a little bit closer to your original image. In the Behance chat, Oliver is saying, I thought APNG had been around for a while, finally ratified. And yes, to that point, that's basically what this is saying. It's saying that a few people had support for it and it was there, but now APNG is now kind of being implemented so that it is then accepted and widely supported across multiple platforms. Now Keys is saying, I've honestly been wanting animated PNGs without prompt. Yes, to have that just be the standard is going to be helping out a lot more. We have higher bandwidth, we have stronger connection speeds. Why not already have it? Kavito is very excited about PNGs, and Winter Powell says, color theory is taking over my life. Once again, seeing work in real life. Yes, colors are super important. Now, you can read all up about different updates that came with PNG, things that are already supported and what's next, but it is exciting for all of us digital creators that are now able to export things that look a little bit better. Speaking of digital experiences and things that are exported and consumed on a screen, talk about a transition there, guys. We talked about Apple's liquid glass either last week or the week before. It's the new design system that is coming to iOS with the update that's coming this fall. That said, at WWDC, which is the Worldwide Developer Conference put on by Apple every year, where they normally announce new software updates, is announcing that they're going to have liquid glass added to their design system. When it came out, you could get a developer beta, which is before the public beta. This is specifically for developers. People were really unhappy with how things were looking. Basically, there was an accessibility issue. There was an issue with just overall clutteredness. And people were giving a very bad rap to Apple since it was going to be system-wide, applied to different apps, different icons, even icons that had not been updated. They were going to take that and they were going to put it through its own system so it automatically gets added to this new liquid glass feeling. Sarah Perez for TechCrunch is reporting that in the new beta, there are updates to the liquid glass that's already out in developer beta to hopefully address some of these concerns. A lot of people are still saying it is not enough, but it is a step in the right direction. Some of the examples that she pulls up is that the last time we looked at this, and this is from June 10th, you can see that ex-user Holly said this is unacceptable, was showing the background of the home screen still very visible when looking at the control center. Now they're blurring it a little bit more, as seen by the creator Bas van der Ploeg, where on the left is what it used to look like, and now they're adding more darkness and blurring to the background. That way that it is easier to see and make out some of these buttons and looks less cluttered. Some things that I'm noticing is the opaqueness that's behind the remote, the opaqueness behind the flashlight. Some of the really cool parts of liquid glass is how the stuff underneath of it interacts with the object. So you can see here underneath the playhead of the play module, not only is it just blurring this, but you can also see across the edge here that it's picking up the colors and morphing it around the shape as it would be a normal glass object, which I think is a very strong suit, but accessibility is important. So the fact that down here, the control system, which has been added to the previous page, is more clearly defined as inaccessible by blurring it out and darkening it, is feeling a lot stronger and a lot more intentional. I think there's going to be a lot of these updates. We have one other thing in Rebrand today that we're going to be talking about, one of the updates to the icons in the new Mac OS update that they recently changed between beta versions. But it is interesting to see that it is truly a developer beta and that they're updating it. Liquid glass seems to be something that is constantly evolving as they are building it out and experimenting it before shipping it to the general public. Tracy's saying liquid glass makes me feel like a boomer, but that is a little better. Winter's still not a fan, and Penny is hyping up Holly because Holly is dragging Apple. Oliver says I'll have to update Tahoe, and what's that like now? Yes, and we'll be talking a little bit about that in just a little bit, but we have a few more things. I know Tracy is staying up late and joining in from the EU, so what better time to go over our next news story, which is what is the European Accessibility Act and what does it mean for UX design? So for our UX designers out there, UX design known as user experience, it's a little bit different than UI, but they go hand in hand normally, and they are either teams that work together or are of the same team. The European Accessibility Act is something that goes into effect at the end of the month, so at the end of the beginning of next week, and it is something that is making ATM machines, computer screens, apps all fill these separate accessibility standards that then allow people to fully understand and interact with digital formats regardless of any disabilities that they have. It's something that was actually brought up in 2019, but the deadline for it to be implemented is the beginning, or it's June 28th, 2025, so not even the beginning of next week. It's the end of this week. And things that need to comply with the EAA are computers and operating systems, ATMs, smartphones, TV equipment, telephone services, ebooks, e-commerce, services related to Airbus, rail, and waterborne passenger transport, banking services. So lots of digital screens. And some things that are the key pillars of what needs to be accessible is it needs to be perceivable, which means that users must be able to perceive content and interfaces regardless of their sensory abilities. They need to be operable, so users must have options for how they can interact with and navigate an interface, such as keyboard input, voice commands, and assistive technology. They need to be understandable, so that any information and interfaces that the user encounters must be clear, predictable, and comprehensible, and they must be robust. So products and services must work with a wider range of assistive technologies, and they must be robust enough that they can evolve to accommodate future assistive technologies as they develop. We're talking a lot about accessibility design a lot on this show, more and more. It's becoming something that the things that we interact with are becoming more and more digital. I know that with cars, there was this push where everything turned into a screen, and people got really mad because they said, I want my dials back, I want my physical input. Luckily, I feel like cars, for the most part, have now started to understand that and have started to implement dials and physical modules for things so that you don't have to keep your eyes off the road. You can just kind of like touch it over to the side. That said, everything else is pretty much going to be leaning towards a screen, less newspapers, less magazines, less signs. I think that this is something that needs to be addressed because people are relying on it. And so I know there are things that we always talk about. Blue Sky, follow me, Ryan Selvy, ryanselvy.com. That there are options on like Blue Sky that say, don't let me post any pictures without putting alt text. And alt text is there. That way you can turn on vocal assistants that will walk you through the image if you need. Bruce is here. Thank you for tuning in. Glad to see you made it out of your meeting to get here and over on YouTube. There is a comment from Umacorn over on Behance. This is digital age is confusing for the elderly, and hopefully this addresses that. Now, Oliver also is struggling with flat touch screens in cars because they're very annoying. No indication of where the buttons are without looking over at it. And Wade is saying, surprise, people like tactile and reactive interfaces. Which, yeah, no, I think that this is all things that, you know, we are continuing to experiment with, and you learn as you go, and we learn as we design. But it's good to see that there is an initiative to go through and look up how to make things accessible for the masses. Turning things a little bit here. This is less about like designing things and more of kind of like news for the art world. There is a cool article from Ars Technica. This is from Benj Edwards, and it says MIT students prints AI polymer masks to restore paintings in hours. Removable transparent films apply digital restorations directly to damaged artwork. Now, this is one of those things that I feel there is always conversations and talks about AI, and I feel like this is one of the ones where it feels like as long as it's done right, it's going to vastly lift up and support really cool things with art. This in particular is kind of being able to see and react to things that maybe humans are unable to see otherwise. I was actually talking to Bruce at dinner last week, and we're talking about surgery and talking about how with doctors, like maybe for the next few years, I wouldn't want necessarily to have a robot arm perform surgery on me, but in 10 years when everything is entirely worked out with the idea of AI, I would probably feel more confident with a robotic arm, you know, making an incision and cutting where it needs to, rather than maybe a doctor who didn't get enough sleep last night. In that vein, there are very, very old, very, very important artworks that obviously we have computer that we're looking at x-rays and we're looking at different ways to restore them. But if there's any way that we are able to go and create it to the next level to be even more delicate and more intentional with it, then I think this is really helpful. It also is a way of being able to pull it out and being able to see it. It says that Kachink, or Alex, it's Kachkine. So Kachkine. MIT graduate student Alex Kachkine once spent 9 months meticulously restoring a damaged Baroque Italian painting, which left him plenty of time to wonder if technology could speed things up. Last week, MIT News announced his solution, a technique that uses AI-generated polymer films to physically restore damaged paintings in hours rather than months. His method works by printing a transparent mask containing thousands of precisely color-matched regions that conservators can apply directly to an original artwork. Unlike traditional restoration, which permanently alters the painting, these masks can be reportedly removed whenever needed, so it's a reversible process that does not permanently damage a painting. Which is really cool because maybe they learned something different about the process or how paint changes, or maybe there's an error and they need to do it and it's not going to be damaging it. It feels like it's something that could maybe just be laced on top and then bada bing, bada boom, it's good to go. I'm interested to see how this affects paintings, and interested to see if we get a better idea of maybe what paintings used to look like before the centuries that have passed between them. Then something that you can get in your own house if you are somebody who likes to get new technologies. The world's first personal 3D texture UV printer revolutionizes DIY creativity. This is on My Modern Mat by Jessica Stewart. It is a desktop printer that is apparently the world's first personal 3D texture UV printer. Now, this is... says being creative at home just got a whole lot easier thanks to an exciting new product wrapping up its Kickstarter campaign. It is allows you to transform any space into a professional printing shop with the ability to print 3D textures on virtually any material. Metal, wood, acrylic, and ceramics are just some of the surfaces it can work its magic on, transferring designs in a wide variety of textures and taking DIY to a whole new level. By shrinking down the size 90%, the team behind Eufy has created something that can easily sit on your desk, and it has already raised $44 million, surpassing its original goal of $500,000. And the pledges have pushed the team to release incredible add-ons that unlock even more potential. I have no idea how much it's actually going to end up being. I don't know the quality of it. It's with a Kickstarter. There's always that, uncertainty. Key says, is its price also an oofy? I would assume this would probably be a decent amount of money, but I'm not entirely sure. Oh, here it goes. It says the Kickstarter campaign ends at the end of this week, at June 28th. Be sure to make your purchase before the special deal ends. Anyone who makes a purchase will receive 25% off the projected retail price with a basic package starting at $1,899. So not entirely impossible, but you're going to have to really want it and want to need it. In order to be able to, I'll spend $2,000 on it. If anyone wants to buy it for the show, I'll use it on the show. Just send me $2,000. Umacorn is saying, I've been seeing this more and more and more. Sean wants to use it for the new tattoos, which is funny because if you look at the thumbnail of the image that's going over it, he has his arm under there, which he's just showing that things can go and be put through. But it does make me instantly also think tattoos, which would be quite the wild experience. But that's all the news headlines that we have for our news section of today. I want to hop over to one of our more popular segments too, which is the font of the week, where we look at Adobe fonts and we like to talk about what fonts is the coolest out of 3. So let's hop into font of the week. This week, the font of the week are Tuppence. Tuppence. Tuppence, which I guess is very whatchamacallit. What is her name? Oh my gosh, guys, help me out here. I can't. Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins. Tuppence. Isn't there a song in Mary Poppins that's all about Tuppence? Am I wrong? I'm right. Tuppence, Magion, and Escapade, which are 3 different ones that we have. If you are available to vote live, we do have a poll that's going on, and we're going to start a poll to see which one is going to be the winner. We will decide who wins the font of the week before the end of the episode. I'm going to go ahead and add Tuppence, Magion, and Escapade all to the poll, and in just a second, I am going to start said poll. We like to look at all 3 of these and see how they look in the words of File New. We also like to talk about maybe when they'd be best used and what they're all about. So all of these are accessible through your Creative Cloud subscription. It's just fonts.adobe.com. But the first one that we have is Tuppence. It's a cultural legacy meets contemporary design, designed by Roberto de Vic de Comtich. And it is a reverse contrast Victorian typeface inspired by the historic black Friars design from London's Stevenson's Blake Foundry. Redesigned with wider proportions, refined curves, and modern weights, it blends vintage charm with contemporary polish. It's packed with swash caps, catchwords, and over 100 ornaments. And you guys know I love ornaments on this show. We love to look at the glyphs. Tuppence is ideal for labels. It's ideal for posters, menus, and more. It's designed by Roberto de Vic de Comtich and developed by Dell Fonts, and it is now available on Adobe Fonts. So let's go ahead and write File New. I love the curves of the N here in the capital. I love the angle of the E, how it matches the angle of the top of the I and the L. I love the flares out of the serifs with the F. And of course, you can always highlight, and when it has this little area under here, that means that there's alternates. So you can right-click and go to Show Alternates for selections. It can then pop down for a little bit more flare. Alternatively, it can also give you some underlines. It can also show you all of them at once if you go here. Let's go and check out the entire font. You can see here that there is a large selection of different letters, symbols, glyphs that are all available, all within the typeface. A bunch of support for a bunch of different languages and accents. That way you can make sure that if you are translating type, it's always going to be there. As far as big, exciting images, they even have some glyphs that are built into the letters themselves. Like the O has a little icon in the middle of it. For the H, there are 4 variants of uppercase H's, with dropping on the left side, dropping on the left and the right, and more. Everything is underlined. We have points. We have ornaments that you could maybe add even outside of type. You could just use this into a border that you create or a frame. This is extremely versatile and extremely useful, and it can work to whatever you're creating. It's a very cool typeface. And we always like to put something in between the file and the new. I like to normally put like an arrow or something. This one has so many though, I don't even know where we would go off of. We could put like a little diamond with dots around it, or a crown, because it wants to be the winner, but who knows. Tracy's saying tuppence a bag. Yes. So that's the panhandler, I think, asking to feed the birds, right? Glyphs, the little trinkets of the font world, says Penny. Yes. Big fan. Big fan. Also, Tuppence Middleton is an actor too, according to Evie. Hi, Evie. Good to see you, as always. And Key says, this has my vote. But you know what? We haven't even gone through the other ones yet. So who knows? Tracy says she's about to vote too early. We always vote against it. So let's make sure we speed up and get through everything. Maggion is a geometric rectangular typeface, serif font. Sans serif font that balances clean construction with subtle calligraphic touches. Its wide lowercase forms and lowered capitals give it a modern, efficient look while preserving legibility. Designed for headlines, but equipped with ligatures, fractions, and case-sensitive forms, it's a versatile choice for logos. It works for signage, packaging, and editorial design. Let's check it out. We'll write File New. I love how this looks digitally. I think this looks very futuristic. This reminds me a bit of like different editing software on your phone with in-app, outlines and labeling. I think it has a cool italics, which is nice. If we highlight and we look through the glyphs over here, you can see they have a bunch of, they've got arrows and fractions. There's also the ability to add different like pounds and euros. Of course, there's a bunch of things. So you can translate your text, as always. There's the rights, there's copyrights, there's trademarks. Let's go, and we'll put in, I like the arrows specifically for this one. For whatever reason, it feels very sci-fi to me. And you guys know me, I love sci-fi. This one's clean, easy to read, big, bold. Does anyone want me to put their name in it? If anybody wants to put their name in it, I could show you what it looks like. My team says it reminds me of Strong Bad emails. That's hilarious. Too Strong Bad. Were you guys really into Strong Bad? It was there for it. I just never ended up watching it too much. And people are like, Ryan, you are absolutely the demographic for Strong Bad. And I never did. Because Tracy said she was going to vote too early. We're going to put up Tracy Marie. And you can see maybe there's some like adjusting with like kerning that would maybe want to be adjusted here. I don't like how the C and the Y are so close. So maybe something more like that. Same with the R and the I. Seems like a little bit too crazy for me. Let's see if there's a variant for I. There's not. So this would definitely probably have to be one that you pay a little bit more attention to. You wouldn't want to just like type it and forget it. But as far as like File New goes, it feels to me very locked down and ready to go. Teen Girl Squad. Thanks, Penny Doodle. Finally, we have Escapade, which I think has probably the most fun name of the three, personally. This is a distinctive type family that bridges old-style serif and experimental Fraktur. If you're wondering what Fraktur is a style of black-letter typeface that originated in Germany in the early 16th century, which makes that the 1500s. It was commonly used for centuries in German language books, newspapers, and official documents. Some of the key features of it are broken strokes, ornate details, dense texture, unique letter forms. But this specific one of Escapade is designed by Alyssa Nowak. It blends Roman and German blackletter influences into a contemporary, highly legible system. The serif styles are ideal for text, while the bold, angular Fraktur styles shine in headlines and branding with true italics, ornamental alternates, and 16 expressive fonts. Escapade offers a fresh, flexible approach to editorial, packaging, and identity design. You can see here, this is the Fraktur version, because I thought that one was the cooler looking one. They've got some really cool ornate capitals that you can bring in, so this isn't necessarily recognizing as an alternate, but if you go into the glyphs themselves, you can see that there's like an H here that you can then switch it out for. And then when it was talking about the serif version, if you go and you are looking in yours, you'll have both regular and italics, but then if you go and just type in Escapade regular, you'll be able to see that there is also a sister typeface that is just a regular serif typeface that will get you a little bit more flexibility and maybe what you're working. This would be better for body copy and bigger parts of text, whereas maybe the Fraktur, which is spelled Fraktur like that, that this would be better for maybe like headlines and things that you really want to call out. Tracy says, I didn't vote yet. I'm holding out, which is good. Smart move, Tracy. And Wade says, hit us with that bold, Ryan. It works well in bold. That might be a reason why you might not want to vote for it, because as far as the Adobe offering, it appears that maybe only regular and italics are available unless something isn't properly, let's see, if I go into more fonts and we write it, I think that's all that is there. If you wanted to, I can't spell Escapade. Wait, how do they spell Escapade? Eskapade, right? Oh, because I'm in sans serif. Let's see, all classes maybe. Yeah, see, only regular, italic, regular, and italic. So if you want that bold, you're either gonna have to pay for it, or maybe you'll choose a different font. So that might have to take place and really speak to which one you're gonna vote for, because maybe you're not voting for it to be the typeface in general, but maybe it's the typeface that's available on Adobe Fonts. So just something to consider and think. Umacorn's sobbing and Wade saying womp womp. Winter saying, well, that's a boo. We need bold. Bruce is also saying, what a boo. That might change my mind. All right, guys. Well, while you guys are voting on that, we're going to keep the font open, the font poll open for a little bit longer. We had a lot of news stories today, so we are pressed for time, but I'm going to continue going on because we have some really cool stuff that I want to go through. So I'll try to not dilly-dally as much. We have, I believe, resources coming up next. So let's hop into resources. I think resources. We're going to say resources. This isn't resources. This is Spotlight. I got things all confused, so I'm sorry. We're in Spotlight. I'm not going to play the thing, but we'll switch it up and do it. This is coming from Dominic by Design. He blew up in the process of me reaching out to him to make sure that I could show this on file now. But it is a really cool breakdown of Korean design, and the I'll let him speak to it. So let's check it out.
Colors, complex compositions, and experimental typography. Korean graphic design is having its moment right now, and rightfully so. But where does this unique graphic style come from? Well, language plays a big part. So today we're going to talk about the godfather of Korean typography, An Sang-soo, and take a look at how his Hangul typefaces impacted contemporary Korean design. Let's break it down. Sang-soo was born in 1952 in Cheongju, South Korea, and studied at Honjik University. In his career, he would go on to start the AG Foundry, supporting the release of experimental Hangul typography, and then found the Paju Typography Institute, providing the next generation of Korean designers with necessary creative foundations. In 1985, Sangso released the first self-initiated Hangul typeface, An Sangso. Inspired by Hangul's modular form, Sangso drilled into its geometric potential and found a new way to design the language. Following this, Lee Sang arrived in '88, innovating on Hangul's form by exploring exploded Jamo compositions, resulting in a more fragmented typographic system. Then, in '93, we meet Mano, his most experimental typeface at the time, designed on a fixed grid with a consistent stroke to create a pattern-like Hangul system. All of these innovations were groundbreaking at the time and provided a strong experimental foundation that echoes through Korean design language to this day. So to honor An Sang-so and the building blocks he laid for contemporary design culture, here's what I came up with.
Isn't that cool?
Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
So that's Dominic by Design. It's DOMINIC by Design on Instagram. Make sure you go check him out. He has a bunch of really cool stuff that he posts. And like I said, over the course of me reaching out and asking if he wanted to be on it, he's got like 3,000 or 4,000 more followers than when I first reached out. So I'm glad that it's working out for him. And I'm hoping that he posts a lot more stuff like that because I thought it was really cool. I didn't know that about Korean letter forms and how geometric they get. It's just great to learn more about design and get jealous of the fact that Latin letters aren't as exciting. I told you we'd talk more about some formats that are being updated on IEEE Spectrum. Ernie Smith is talking about why JPEGs still rule the web. It talks about how 30 years ago, the JPEG became the dominant way we share digital photos on the internet, what its benefit is, what's kind of working against it, how it has led up against the GIF or GIF, and that is also even discussed of how it's pronounced in this article. It's really fun. It's about a 9-minute read. And very cool way of some internet history, but also gives you a little bit of understanding of when you're exporting why you might want to pick JPEG over something else. I tend to always do PNG, but there is something to be said for JPEGs. And then there are some different write-ups about creators this week. The Forbes top creators have the top 50 creators online with some of the call-outs as to what their impact is, their entrepreneurship is, how they interact with their communities, their engagement rates. They're all different disciplines, so they're not all specifically going to be straight up like YouTubers. There's like live streamers here. My favorite that I probably tend to go to a lot is down here. I listen to him every Friday with there's 4 other guys on his podcast. Marquez Brown Lee, he's a big tech guy. They do the Waveform podcast. I was excited to see him. He has 33.4 million followers, which is wild. It was just a really cool way to see if there are people that you really like. I mean, Miss Rachel's on here. Ryan, which was the biggest followed YouTube account for the longest time when he was 3 years old. Now he's 13. So interesting to see him continue to stay in the spotlight. Justine, who's been around for a while. There's a bunch of people there. There's veterans here, and there is also newcomers, and it's cool to be able to see new people. It's also crazy to see some of these people that I have never heard of before in my life that you look at, and like Hannah Stocking has 72 million followers. Probably have gotten some of her stuff across my feed, and I've probably even liked it if she has that many, but I could not close my eyes and tell you Hannah Stocking if you were to go through. So go through, check those out, see if your favorite creator is on there, maybe find some new and see kind of how people are leveraging the online platforms to be able to reach communities that are bigger than some cities, which is always very exciting. Also, to that degree, maybe something that's a little bit more in our wheelhouse is Creative Boom. Tom May wrote top 20 graphic designers inspiring us the most in 2025. Visionary creatives are redefining visual communication with bold aesthetics, cultural storytelling, and boundary-pushing innovation across all mediums. The very first one is Temi Coker, who I believe has been on Adobe Live. We have Natasha Jen, Hugh Miller, Rachel Gogol, Marie Belanger, Ingrid Picanol. And these are just really good ways to be able to get inspiration add people to your following list so that you get inspired while you're doom scrolling, and learn more a little bit about these people who are posting really cool things online that tend to get reposted. They do their due diligence with researching each of these creators of graphic designers. And so shout out to Tom May. It's on creativeboom.com. I suggest you guys read the full article and see who they highlight. See if anyone you know is on there. And if so, have them come on to File New. Okay. Our last spotlight before we hop into Rebrand is the 28 Years Later movie is shooting on iPhone, and this is from Anthony Ha at TechCrunch. It's talking about why Danny Boyle shot 28 Years Later on iPhone. Basically, they were able to make this rig with just iPhones to get a bullet effect, which you probably saw forever ago in The Matrix when they had these gigantic, huge rigs that were there for Matrix with gigantic cameras, which are no longer kind of why are there so many upvotes here? I was on Creative Boom the start of June, says Evie. Oh my god, okay, all right. Can you message me that link? And I would love to check it out. Also, make sure you go ahead, and we have an Adobe Live Discord server. If you go in, you could put it in the File New section. That'll be a great place where then other people will be able to see it, and we'll make sure that we cover it in our next episode. To fast forward really quick, we're not going to be live for the next 2 weeks. So in 3 weeks, we will go over it because we're about to go on summer vacation. But just to let you know, this is the season finale, so we will come back to it. Please put it in the Discord channel, and I would love to highlight it on our next show. That is so cool. Congratulations. Awesome. 2 huge thumbs up. 3 if I can do it. And basically, he just goes back to the story. He just goes in to say that like they're so nimble and so resourceful, and you can turn off auto-focusing and brightness and stuff within the camera, and now it is able to do so much that you would be unable to do previously. And also, he talks about being able to shoot in locations where previously it would be too destructive to the environment, but because of the nimbleness of iPhones, you're able to use just iPhone to film, and it's good to go. Let's quickly hop into Rebrand. So you might be looking at this and saying, this is the same logo. Trust me, it's not. If you're putting them side by side, it's hard to tell, but Ego did a rebrand, and Brand New did a cool write-up on it. If you have like an extra $1 to spare, they're a really good subscription that you can then learn more about. But like you can see here, if I put it on top and I bring it down, you can see that the E is moving, the G is moving, the bowls of the E are becoming rounder and more defined, which is really cool. They're bringing in, I'm just going to kind of like turn it on and off. It became a little bit more of a redder font. They cleaned up the O. And you might be like, okay, cool, but that doesn't seem like it's necessary. When you see it applied to their packaging, it's really strong. It looks really good. It seems bright. It seems cleaner. It just seems like an improvement. It's one of those things that doesn't feel like they need an improvement until you see it, and then you're like, oh, wow, it's a nice refresh. Another really cool thing they did is they are highlighting the product imagery through the colored plates. So like Blueberry has a blue plate. The minis have these little teal and turquoise, and these mini waffles with Berry Blast have this purple plate. So you can easily look at it, and it still has the imagery of the product, but it has different color tells that you're able to see that there is a differentiation between the different products, which I think is really cool. I think it's a very successful rebrand. It's one, like I said, that you might not be able to notice at first, but then once you see it in practice, I think it's very nice. Penny saying very smooth. Keith says now I'm very hungry. And Tracy's saying, wow, it looks like a huge change. Now that's crazy. I can't tell if you're being sarcastic or not, but interesting to say the least. One that I am not a huge fan of, but you might be, and we don't like to drag people on the show, so I'm not going to drag or anything, but I will say Shutterstock did a rebrand, and maybe I've just spent a lot of time on Shutterstock, but I was way more partial to the red one here with the kind of like framing of the camera in the O. Now it's changed to this, which I guess is like maybe reflections or maybe a watch or maybe cycling through like iTunes cover flow. I'm not sure. Not a fan. And then finally, I know we're flying through. We got like 4 minutes left. We have the 9 to 5 Mac reported on the Finder icon color balance being restored in the new beta update. They made this the new Finder icon in the Tahoe Beta 1. People hated it. People freaked out. I didn't really get the big freak out. I guess people were mad because the blue was now on the right and it was tinier. They have now since switched it to the blue in the background and the white in the front, and people are a lot happier. I think they both look great, honestly. I think like one could be dark mode, one could be light mode, honestly. But for people who felt very passionately about that, it was there. As far as Shutterstock goes, Bruce says he does not know. Oliver says with the new one, the bits around the O made my brain see Shutterstock. Which yeah, I could see that, absolutely. And Penny saying it's messing with their head. Winter's saying it's okay. The Shutterstock is it's fine. Which is interesting to see. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. All right, I want to make sure I touch on 2 more things, which is resources for real this time. Harry Sauce did a very cool update on making the perfect colors. So I just want to make sure that we check that out real quick. And you guys will be able to apply this to your own work. I need to make sure that I am sharing audio. And then we will queue it on up. And then we're going to reload the page so that it automatically plays.
The ratio to build my color palettes. 1. Pick a color. I'll use my orange. 2. Rotate your hue by 137.5 degrees, which is roughly a third of the color wheel. Here's the formula. That'll give you a really nice accent color. 3. Desaturate your main color by 60% roughly. That'll give you a really nice color to go with the main color. After that, you should have a really nice color palette of 3 colors. Like this video so we can reach more designers. This is how I use the golden ratio to build my color palettes. 1. Pick a color.
Yeah, so just using the golden ratio and being able to have things that you are able to move around, you can move those colors around, and as long as you keep the ratio on top, it's still going to keep a really strong color palette. And sometimes you just really need to have a formula to kind of sink your heels in and feel stronger about it. And then one other resource is coming from MDS, and this is refining some UI with ways to make your work feel cleaner and stronger. And I'm going to go ahead and show that as well. Oops. Let's see here. Where'd you go?
This to this. And why does it feel instantly better? The first modal looks okay, but the details are working against it. 3 font sizes and line height that's way too tight. It makes the text hard to read, and that orphaned word at the end kills the rhythm. The spacing isn't following any clear system, the margins feel random, and the visual weight is unbalanced. It just feels off. The buttons fail contrast checks, and those slightly different hues create a subtle vibrating effect that's hard on the eyes. Now, look at the updated version. Font sizes are reduced and unified, same size for the title and description, but weight and spacing create hierarchy. The layout feels balanced, and the spacing between elements is visually even. The color palette is cohesive, same hue, different brightness, and now every text element passes contrast standards. We can also swap the purple button for red, not a rule, but red introduces hesitation. It tells the user, this action matters. Typography, layout, and color. If you get these right, everything just feels better. How do you go from this to this?
Yeah, so I think just some things to apply to your own designs. Make sure you're paying attention to line height, padding, color, contrast, and then it will then reflect into your own work. All right, guys, so that's all the time that we have for today. I want to make sure we go back and we crown a winner real quick for font of the week. Between Tuppence, Magion, and Escapade, our winner goes to Tuppence, right? Tuppence with 64% of the vote. It already has a crown in place, but we're going to go ahead and put the crown right in the middle anyway. That is our font of the week. I'll make sure I link to it in the Discord. Make sure you guys join that Discord and say hello. And make sure we can hang out because I'm going to be gone for, well, we're all going to be wrong. Adobe Live is offline next week. And then after that, we are going to be back with a special week of something, which I don't know if it's been announced or not yet, so I don't want to say it. And then the week after that, we're going to have a new schedule, new shows, you name it. And so I'll be updating that, and we'll be announcing things on Discord and the different ways that, I don't know. Hopefully we can figure it all out. And if not, you know, I'd love to hear your feedback. So make sure you guys hop in there. That's all for now. Up next, we have office hours, so stick around. And thank you guys for making season 3 awesome. When we come back, it'll be season 4. So thanks again. Have a great break, and hope to see you around on the Discord. All right, guys. Thanks for watching.